constitutional challenges to the federal government to the Freedom Convoy originating at its front door, Alberta's no stranger to divisive issues. I asked Premier Danielle Smith about the political temperature in the province.
I feel like we had that debate and discussion 18 months ago. And in Alberta, we came to the conclusion that we went through a hard time together. And now it's time for us to move into the post-COVID era and start treating respiratory viruses as dangerous as they are, whether it's influenza, whether it's COVID, whether it's RSV, and to get life back to normal. I just don't feel that we have that kind of division in Alberta. I think everybody is focused on the future and focused on, there may have been a delay of a couple of years, there were some supply chain disruptions, but this is a province that just gets it done. So I think in some ways we've put a lot of that behind us, and it's part of the reason why we continue to grow. We continue to have in-migration, we continue to see our GDP grow, and I think people are really enthusiastic about all the opportunity that's available.
One thing is certain, of course, and that is that in our history, a strong Alberta has been an important part of a strong Canada. Do you feel that kind of sense of unity, that there's a two-way sort of support system right now, and could it be improved?
Oh, I think, one of the things that has been such a delight about this job is the Council of the Federation. That's so when we get together as premiers and we put aside our partisan hats and we identify the things that we share in common so that we can work together. And so with British Columbia, we're working together on LNG and ammonia export. With Yukon, we're looking at trying to find a new pathway to create a line for critical minerals to get to the coast through Alaska. When I talk about my relationship with Scott Moe, we've got a pilot project right now to share, to have meat move more freely across our two borders, among other things that we're working together on. And I've got common cause with the other premiers on pretty well any number of matters. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the positive, is that when we get together and we talk about nation building and building strategic infrastructure and the role the federal government can play, the frustration that we all have is it seems like the federal government is interested in doing our job. They keep on interfering in our areas of jurisdiction when really we'd like for them to build ports and airports and rail lines and new access points for border traffic. That to me, I think would be some really impressive work on the federal government if they could get focused on it. And that's, I would say, is one of the things that we could look forward to as a positive if we're able to work together on that.
I do think a lot of Canadians are surprised when they're reminded of the many trade barriers between our provinces. You've been a province that has led the way on trying to create a more free trade environment, and yet they remain. How can we do better on that front?
Well, I'll tell you, because we're in a little bit of a battle on the wine issue with British Columbia. And part of that is to make the points, right? So we have been very open. We have a free enterprise system. And as a result, in BC, we have 1.2 million liters a day of BC craft brewed beer being sold in Alberta. We've got 12,000 liters of spirits from BC being sold in Alberta. We've got 795,000 liters of wine being sold. And this is every month. And British Columbia stocks 4 Alberta products. So we just would like to see some reciprocity.
Yeah, obviously, there's a road ahead, and it's too early to ask you about kind of what you want to leave as a mark. But it must be on your mind in terms of big goals. What are some of the big goals that you've stated and you are determined to follow through on?
I'd like to be net debt of zero, meaning we have just as much financial assets as we do debt, so that it can be manageable. I want to see us move on a pathway where people can see the growth of the Heritage Savings Trust Fund and the ultimate investment income being enough to replace our reliance on resource revenues. I want to continue to see our economy diversify so that we are known around the world as not only an energy producer, but a clean energy producer, as well as a place that produces food and manufactured products and all of the things that people need. And I want to make sure that we continue with our principal job as a provincial government. You've got to deliver the very best healthcare. You've got to take care of people as they age. You've got to take care of people when they fall on difficult times. And you've got to make sure that you've got a world-class education system for K-12 education and trades and post-secondary and beyond. So there's a lot on the plate, but I think aspirationally, that's where I hope that we can chart a path to in the coming decades.
What do you see as the biggest impediment to achieving that?
I think the biggest impediment is the federal government working against us. I mean, I had to go to COP28 because I just don't have confidence that the federal government is going to tell the Alberta story. I've had to go to Washington for the same reason, is that I just don't feel like at the table they're talking about the $182 billion worth of product that Alberta sells to our American counterparts. I've got also a number of my ministers who are going to South Korea and Japan. And I've been to the Middle East, and we're going to have to project ourselves onto the world because, quite frankly, we don't have a partner in Ottawa that I feel is taking care of our interests, and that's a shame. I don't think it's always been that way. I hope that will change. I keep on pressing for us to be going out into the world together, arm in arm, talking about everything that makes us great. But I haven't seen that is the case yet. But in the absence of the federal government doing it, I'm going to make sure that people know what Alberta's story is.
Premier, we have to leave it there. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
We've been in conversation with Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith. Time for the takeaway and why the sum of the parts is always greater than the whole. It's sometimes tempting to think of Canada and its provinces as a family, with Ottawa and the federal government at the head of the family and the provinces and territories as offspring. But if recent political and legal skirmishes tell us anything, it's that no family functions like this. Ottawa does not have absolute authority over provincial or territorial governments, but neither do those governments have absolute veto to do as they like. One of the core attributes that shapes Canada is the notion that we can live anywhere, moving freely between provinces and have the same supports and basic rights, where the feds act more like a watchdog over healthcare and education, while the provinces do the heavy lifting of delivering those services. Equalizing the economic outcomes between provinces has always been part of that picture, so that there aren't have and have not Canadians, even if their provincial economies differ. It's not a perfect structure, but it may be the thing that most makes Canada uniquely Canadian. It's also a structure with flaws, which has over time created divisions. That there are people in Alberta who would openly muse about Albertan independence tells a story about the irritation with the relationship, even if that's not a very rational line of thought. Alberta has its own character. It's an open, young, fast-moving, and entrepreneurial-minded place, and it is, of course, the center of Canada's resource wealth. As such, the rest of the country has been in some ways indebted to Albertans for generations. As we collectively look to a different future, one that will include new sources of energy and new types of industry, it makes sense to put Alberta at the center of that conversation. Not to shut down debate by others, but because it both has much to lose and also much to offer. Everything that made Alberta the right place for oil and gas to flourish could also make it a leader in the new technology we need now. My takeaway? Every partnership will have friction from time to time, and one of the best ways forward is to keep in mind what you truly value in each other. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.